Hey everyone, Dolphiny Touch Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Savages album, Adore Life. This is the sophomore full-length album from this UK post-punk outfit. I enjoyed their debut full-length LP, Silence Yourself, quite a bit. One of my favorite albums of the year it dropped. I believe the song Shut Up was my favorite rock song of that year too. Give a listen to that song if you haven't heard it. Especially if you're into, Susie and the Banshees, Joy Division, that kind of stuff. I also caught them in New York City this past year, where they played a live show where they actually incorporated a lot of the material from this new full-length album. Live, it sounded fantastic, so of course I was excited to give a listen to this album. Definitely one of my most anticipated albums of 2016. And I'm sure there are plenty of records you guys have anticipated too, in the past, but have you ever given a listen to a record you were anticipating and it felt like everything that generally made the artist good was there, but just something was missing? Ugh. Because that's just really how I feel here. On paper, it would seem that much of what made Savage's debut record so great carried over onto this project. The driving bass lines, the reverb-soaked atmospheric guitars, Jenny Beth's very emotive, expressive vibrato. But it's not all coming together to create the same menacing, powerful atmosphere that Silence Yourself had on so many cuts. This album does not feel as big, or as pummeling, or as immense. Tracks like Shut Up and Husbands were ear-shatteringly loud at points, and performed with some serious guts, even on similarly aggressive cuts, like on This Is What You Get, which has speedy drums, speedy bass line, and Jenny Beth on top. Her vocals seem kind of claustrophobic, like they're not really in the mix, not really soaked in reverb like much of the instrumentation is, not really howling or wailing with the intensity her vocals usually do. They're kind of reserved in comparison with other vocal performances even on this record. I like the bitter angle at love that the lyrics on the song takes, but I'm not getting that pent-up rage that obviously fueled the writing of these lyrics. I kind of feel the same way with the song Sad Person, which again, some decent drums and bass on this thing. Not a bad song concept in terms of the lyrical content here, but it seems like Jenny Beth is holding back once again, not really letting loose on whoever she had in mind when she strung these words together. I'm not really getting the idea that she's singing about this hateable, horrible, sad, detestable person. The ending on this track was really explosive though, I did like that. But still, it's a shame to hear these tracks, which at their core may be written pretty decently, sounding kind of flaccid on record, especially since when I heard them live, they were huge, they were explosive, they were as explosive as the older material. So this lowering of the energy seems like a change of pace that isn't serving this album very well. However, if there is a plus side, a change of pace that did work in favor of some of these tracks, Savages incorporates a little more vocal melody on these tracks, especially on the intro song here. If you don't love me, don't love anybody, if you don't love me. Really odd vocal line flying over this whirlwind of guitars and snares and cymbals. It's total chaos and just a big bang of an intro track. There was a touch of extra vocal melody on the song Sad Person as well that I liked, but as far as the slower, subtler, quieter tracks go, they weren't really the showstoppers on the band's last full-length LP. They were definitely the Achilles heel in a sense, though I didn't think they were that bad. However, they've gotten even worse here, like on the song Adore, which is anything but riveting except for the end, which is actually pretty explosive, has a nice crescendo. There are actually quite a few moments on this record where the verses, the choruses, pretty much everything leading up to the huge, just monstrous ending will be kind of drab. And then there's the track Slowing Down the World, which has a decent drum and bass groove, but if the band was trying to put a lull in the middle of this record, they did it. Especially with the flaccid hook, which does not contrast well out of the verses. And the guitar leads on this thing seem really awkward, kind of like they just don't know where to really insert themselves. Also the case on When in Love, which if you listen to the guitar leads on the intro and the chorus here, Probably the most awkward guitar lead you're going to hear all year. Does not complement the melody or the groove of what's going on in the background at all. There are moments on this LP where it feels like the drums, the guitars, the bass, they're all playing at the same tempo, but nobody's complementing each other, playing off of one another. Everybody's just kind of doing their own thing and just making sure that it's all in the same key. By the time the song I Need Something New rolls into the track list, I'm feeling a similar frustration. The track is loud, it's hard hitting, but it's not really the refreshing change of pace that I was hoping for at this point in the record. Though I do like the song Surrender a lot. It's one of the better melodic cuts on here, and even though it is loud, I think it could be toned down into a decent ballad as well. I love the way Jenny Beth's vocals just kind of call out very evocatively and very dramatically, "Surrender," on the chorus here. Feels really big, feels really dramatic. After that, the record closes out with an indulgent 5-minute finisher, which maybe would have been more palatable if all the songs preceding this track had been a little bit catchier, more exciting, more interesting. There were a handful of tracks on this LP that I liked, and I appreciate that Savages put together yet another no BS record and just gave us the 10 tracks and ducked out. But I feel like the band on this one handed us very roughly the same album over again, but just not quite as good. The quality gap between these two records was pretty obvious. And a lot of the time it comes down to individual tracks. The writing isn't really as fantastic, not as catchy, and the performances, which if you're a punk band, I don't really think you could skimp out on a band that relies on just a visceral sound, an explosive sound. The performances a lot of the time are kind of flaccid, just not as intense, nor is the sound as intense as what Savages have delivered in the past. Some of the risks that the band took with melody served themselves well, but outside of that, there just wasn't really enough to sort of change things up and just make the band's sound come off fresh again. I'm feeling a light 6 on this LP. Transition. Have you given this record a listen? If you did you enjoy it more than me? If you did, that's totally cool. What did you like about the record? What did you dislike about the record? I hope you have a good one. I'm sorry. Forever.